Hi, I'm Vanessa Pizzuto. I'm in IN2G, and today I'll be talking about sex education from a shame-free perspective. So some time ago, I started reading about purity culture. I don't know if you heard about it. I wasn't very sure what it meant. Started reading books about it and realized that sometimes we're trying to do good things and we're trying to help young people to make good decisions. We do so in a way that actually harms them.
Right.
And so I kind of started reading, and then I got invited to go to Germany and share some of those ideas, and I was like, I'm really not an expert on this. I just read a few things about it, but I had the opportunity to share some of those thoughts, and I felt like there was a really great need for this kind of conversation.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Okay, so in regards to when you say that about the purity, what is the concept behind, for those that don't know what that is? What is the concept behind it?
Sure. So purity culture movement is not the same as having values. Okay, let me start with that.
Right.
I'm not against values. Now, in the 90s and 200s, 2000s, what?
Wow.
Wow!
I remember that far back.
Time travel. So in the 90s and 2000s, there was a movement that started in the States with books like I Kissed Dating Goodbye.
Oh yes, I remember that book.
Does it ring
Yes,
any bells?
I remember that.
And the whole idea, the idea was good. The idea is we are going to empower young people to have amazing relationships and to have great sex when they get married. In the process, this movement, which became an industry really, started sharing some really challenging ideas like your value depends on your virginity, right? And they were using some illustrations that were super scary, like they will get a group of young people and they will say, okay, I'm chewing a piece of gum. Now I'm gonna pull it out of my mouth. How many of you would like it? Okay, this is how women are if they have sex before they get married. And imagine that, right? This is not only wrong, it's also nowadays, when I think about that teaching, I see it as a blasphemy because your value, Asha, is intrinsic. I want you to make good decisions, empower decisions, inform decisions, so you live a good life. But if tomorrow you make a decision that is wrong, God will love you exactly the same. Because His love is not dependent on your behavior. Yeah. God is not coming to you saying do this or don't do that because otherwise I cannot love you. God wants to empower you to feel good about yourself. Careful what you do, you know? And so when we tell young women and young men that their value depends on their behavior, we are filling their bodies and their minds with shame. And what happens when these young people get married is a lot of dysfunction. A lot of dysfunction. So I had friends, they started getting married, and they will tell me some horror stories, Cynthia. They had done what the church told them to do, they had waited, and they got to the wedding night, and they experienced a lot of pain. You know? And they didn't have the information, the vocabulary to even talk to someone and to say, this is what is happening to me. In fact, there is now so many books on this. One of them is called The Great Sex Rescue. If you work with young people, I highly recommend it. The lady who wrote it went through all the books of that time and kind of started putting together what happens when you actually do these things. When you grow up, women were told, when I now think about that, I get so angry. Women were told that because your body belongs to your husband, the day that you get married, you don't get to choose. Right. And so maybe you're tired, maybe just not in the mood, whatever. And then on top of that, some women were told, oh, if you say no to your husband, you're not being a good Christian. If you say no to your husband, he's going to start watching porn. Imagine that. And it's your fault. You know, like you're being a bad woman. And then they started comparing and seeing the incidences of dysfunction and illnesses that came. And they were in line with those women that had been abused sexually. So 37% is the incidence of dysfunction and pain and suffering that takes place when a woman grew up being told she doesn't get to choose, right? This is the same, statistically the same as if you experience sexual abuse.
Wow. So guys, have you got any questions on that?
Yes, that's quite interesting actually, because I was looking at something just this week, maybe last week.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things. So one was about, we tell the young people all the time, don't have sex before marriage. Almost like sex is wrong, forbidden, taboo, all of this kind of stuff. And just like you said, so when they get married, because it's not spoken about, it's either like they don't know what to do, or like I said, it's pain, or it doesn't really, it's not the paradise that they've been
promised.
Yeah. And about how are we actually helping people, or I say young people, but unmarried,
everybody,
right? To actually move into a marriage relationship with everything that what sex should be, and recognizing what it is.
I want to say two things to that.
Of course, yes.
I want to start with the fact that we cannot promise anyone a great sex life because we don't know. So what the purity culture movement did is they had a big stick, a big gun loaded with shame, and it said to people, either you do this or boom, all this shame is yours. That was the stick. The carrot was saying, but if you are good, you are gonna get married and sex is going to be fabulous, right? And the truth is, that is prosperity gospel. That is emotional prosperity gospel. Guys, how many of us are actually super able to see prosperity gospel when a preacher stands up and says, if you believe in the Lord, you'll get money? You'll go like, no. But we do this on an emotional level when it comes to sex.
Right.
How damaging, unfair. And also imagine the young person who believed you. What's going to happen when they realize
that's not,
they lied to me on something super important. Can I now believe them? So that's the one thing I wanted to say. The second thing for me is super important, that sex education becomes commonplace, age appropriate, but absolutely commonplace. We teach young boys and young girls the real words for every part of their bodies. You know, we have proper sex education in schools, and to me, from a Christian perspective, shame-free sex education is based on three things. Of course, values, because you want young people to have a good life, right? Of course, I'm not against values. But the other two elements that we're lacking so often and so sadly is one, respect for the free will and the dignity of every human being. So you approach that lovely person that you want to help, and you respect their free will, like God does, right? You go like, look, I'm going to give you information, I'm gonna tell you what I think, but at the end of the day, the decision is still yours, and I'm not going to withhold love, I'm not going to withhold acceptance, I'm not gonna kick you out emotionally if you happen to believe a different thing.
I think that's key. And just generally how we are as humans anyway, because if you think about it, if we do have that knowledge that just to respect everyone, that everyone has a choice, we can't actually make somebody do something that they don't want to do. As much as we want them to do it, it's up to them, it's their choice whether they do it or not. But we kind of have this culture of control, and it's something where it's like, you know, particularly in the young people that I see and I speak to a lot of young girls as well, who are like, sometimes they feel like they have no choice, that they don't have any control over what they do. And that's down to, no disrespect, but that's down to some of the boys that they have to deal with and their trauma really, and how that plays out, and then they just sort of assume that
they don't
whatever
have
they
a
say,
say. And this is, sorry, can
No, go for it.
I really want to hear what you want to say, but I want to talk about disembodiment. Embodiment is a beautiful feel. We don't have time for that, but I do want to say, when you grow up as a woman, being told that your body is a stumbling block and that you are responsible for the thoughts and actions of other people, which is not true. Every person is responsible. We all live with respect and kindness and dignity, whether we're boys, whether we're girls, we all need to live in respect, kindness and dignity. but at the end of the day, you're responsible for your thoughts and actions, and I'm responsible for mine. Now, if I grow up being told that my body is such a stumbling block that men cannot control themselves, how comfortable am I going to feel in my own body? And then I say I do, and magically, hello, I'm gonna be so ready for this. I'm gonna go, come puppy, I'm ready.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
I want you to think about that. And it connects to what you said, because the body not only expresses when you like and dislike something, and your capacity and your voice to say, I'm not comfortable. I don't want this. Also, your voice to say, I want this in the right context and right relationship. What happens when you were told to push all down and you were never given a chance to connect with your body? Now I want to hear your thoughts.
Yes.
You were about to say something.
Yes, Asha, definitely. I want to hear what you have to
now
say.
I have a completely different question.
No, let's
Go for it.
Let's hear this.
I think from just a practical standpoint, I think my question would be, whose responsibility is it to educate our young people? Because when we look at sexual education, we speak about, school settings and what happens in PSHE, but the real conversations that need to take place, where do they take place, and who are the people that should address these things, and how should we approach it?
That's a great question. Yeah.
I think for me, sorry, I think for me, it's really about everything starts with the family. I think.
Okay.
Yes.
But I think there is responsibility with the family, but also responsibility with the community. So if you're in a church and a Christian community, I think there is a partnership that should take place, so that everybody gets that. They get the information they need to, because sometimes children might be with their parents, they don't really want to talk about that sort of thing. It's like, a bit embarrassed, like, Mum, don't talk to me about that. Ugh. Do you know what I mean? But it's about really having that space. And also, it's about being conscious of that. We need to have those discussions. Because I think sometimes in the church community, like Vanessa mentioned, we don't put that into part of our consideration. When you think about a conference for the youth, that is not something that you think, okay, as part of the lineup, I'm going to put this as a subject or a place they can go for workshop, but it needs to be at the forefront, and it's an intentional thing that should be listed and to be actually planned upon, and to bring about the right people, amiable people, and not people going to make them feel uncomfortable, and also have counsellors there. I think having a conference for youth is important to have counsellors that deal with trauma, counsellors that deals with any kind of things, so that they are part of the whole ecosystem of a conference. With that, I think that will make the difference, because it would even tackle things, and I dare say, LGBTQ questions that may come about when it comes to sexual education, that maybe some young people in the church are maybe having thoughts about or going through. But if you have somebody that they can connect and talk to, then you're getting to the root of what is happening, and you're able to help and support them through it. Does that make sense? Because it's one thing to have a preacher preaching about something, but once that preacher's done and they are left with all these thoughts, all these questions, that they may not be able to have that connection, have those questions answered. And also it's quite embarrassing as well. Sometimes people don't want the youth or anybody, like you said, unmarried, may not want to come up there and be like, oh, I need help, or they might just want that. I love the concept of having a safe space, a place where it's a safe space where people can go to and have a conversation, and it allows them, and they can go any time, and it's part of the conference, and nobody is judged or anything like that. And it might even be somewhere that it's the way that it's designed is private, so you don't know who's inside there, and it's just giving them that dignity is key, I think.
I want to say two more things. I think your question is fantastic. I will change the word. Instead of responsibility, I would say whose privilege is to teach this, whose honor is to share this kind of information. Because when we abdicate that privilege and that honor, then young people get their education and quote unquote from porn and from other sources that are not prepared for that.
Yes.
Also, I want to go back to something you said. This interest in me started because I was at a camporee where two amazing ladies were invited to have this kind of conversation. And the sex conference, the place where they invited me and some other people, was church, actually realizing the need for this and bringing people together. So I said 2 legs. One is obviously values, the other is respect for dignity and free will. And the third one, and it has to do with what you said, is the education needs to be scientific
Yes.
and trauma-informed.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
100%.
education needs to be scientific and trauma-informed. And sex education, it needs to happen, obviously, first and foremost at home. But even if you don't have children, I don't, I think we need to start teaching ourselves and relearning the things that we didn't learn properly. So when a young person comes and talks to me, we can speak to them from a place of healing, from a place of spiritual and emotional abundance, and from a place of, you know what, it is my honor and my absolute privilege to share this with you.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think that it's all well and good. I think, to say, it needs to start at home. But then if you think about it, even in the church, there's people who come to church, young people who come to church, and they're the only person in their family that do come. Some are coming from, I mean, every family is dysfunctional, but where maybe their parents are not in that place to be able to tell them anything. So I like what you said about just having a space where they can come. And you know, we have Cornerstone, right? But if we have like a youth Cornerstone, right? Yes. So there is that place that they can have a discussion. And I think it's also important because this doesn't start when they're teens. It starts before that. That's right. And it starts with relationship.
Yes.
And so every one of us has a
responsibility.
Right?
Privilege, actually,
to, you know, to build relationships with the young people at our church, with the children at our church, spend time talking to them. Because you're right, sometimes going to your parents is just like, do I have to talk about this?
Yes.
So, but if you have that auntie or that uncle that you can talk to because they've always been there for you throughout your whole life, ever since you can remember, then that is something that I think we all have that responsibility to do that with. I mean, if you're not good with kids, then just don't. But you know, and I think it's not just ideally your parents, but I think that as a church, as a village, that I think we have a responsibility to even build those relationships with young people.
But I also think there's an extension. I think it's fine to look at the youth and say, we're going to support them in this way. But I think it's people that are married, people that are not classified as the conventional youth or young person, people that are maybe in relationships but they need a sort of a bespoke support in that way. Not like you must not do this and not do that. It's more about that, whatever stage or season they are in their life, they get that support. So they get married, they get that support at that season. They've been married for 10, 15 years, they get support. Because it's sex education is something that's lifelong. It's a lifelong education. And so I think that it should be created in that way when it comes to the Christian village, that it's lifelong and it's not just put in, okay, the youth have got this, so, you know, everybody else is not doing it. We're all very, you know.
And also, in the same way that we train pastors and we train teachers and we have scholarships for pastors and we have scholarships for teachers, maybe we need to write letters to our leaders in the church and go, you know what, I will absolutely love if we had a scholarship for a Christian sexologist.
Yes.
I would really, why not?
That would be incredible.
What if we just get a bit more proactive and with respect and kindness, always write to our leaders and say, we need more of this.
Yes.
And we are willing to take an offering in our church and put that money towards that. Can you match whatever we raise? Because we need, you know, Christian sex educators that can give good advice, solid advice to our young people and our people of all ages.
Of course. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Right.